And a very good morning to you. Welcome along to OTBAM this Thursday morning. And we've got a show for you today. We're going to hear from Keegan and from Mossy Quinn ahead of the weekend's All-Ireland semi-finals in the football. And we're also going to talk a lot about everything else that's going on. The world of golf is pretty interesting this week, although you wouldn't know because no one's going to be able to watch it on TV. It's terrible that people have to suddenly watch stuff on the internet, isn't it, Owen?
Yeah.
You've never watched stuff exclusively on the internet in your life.
No,
like,
never.
What a sea change this is going to be for... Tommy doesn't even have a TV, for God's sake.
I know, nobody watches anything on the internet or on TV. People don't watch anything anymore. People just do, I don't know, use social media or something.
It's Fortnite's fault.
Fortnite. They just dab and play Fortnite. That's all the kids do these days.
You've been speaking with Dan Leavy. He's on the show today.
He is. He's on a little bit later on.
Do you like the new Leinster jersey?
It's interesting.
Shut up with your Munster bias.
Well, you know. Okay. I was thinking about it yesterday. There was it the Stevens Day game, or was it a little bit earlier on in the season when they played each other? But it had just kind of struck me that they both reverted to an all red and an all blue kit, which looks amazing when they go toe to toe.
Yeah.
Like I'm trying to think. Like obviously Munster used to have navy shorts. They have white shorts for a time as well. But when it was all red versus all blue, it makes a great difference. And obviously the home kit for Leinster is staying in that manner. And they've got a cool kind of camo colour, bottle green, I'm told, colour jersey as well, which is their new away jersey, Leinster. So yeah, it's interesting. It's a cool new kit.
Okay. We want to talk about refereeing. A couple of clips we want to play first. Going to start with we'll start with Evan Fitzmaurice, right? Because yesterday he said this, and I was like, oh, that's interesting that he understands this about human nature. And I thought that maybe that was something that they had experience of, but I didn't realise that it was going to be so amazingly prescient. Here's what he had to say about having two referees, but listen to the reason why.
I think we need a second referee, and I know the minute that's muted, the GAA say, oh, we've two linesmen on either side of him, but the linesman can give certain amount of help, but I think oftentimes what's forgotten is they're rivals of the referee other than on match day. They want to be inside in the middle themselves.
Good point.
And, you know, if a fella's out in the middle of the field and he's making a bit of a hash of the game, it wouldn't be human for the two boys on the side to be saying, geez, I might have a better chance of getting a big game or an All-Ireland down the line. So I genuinely think that we need a second ref. I think we could embrace technology more, but that probably won't happen in my lifetime.
David Goff spoke with Shane Stapleton in the last off-season and kind of gave an insight into the type of ambition that all these referees clearly have. Have a look.
Do you think certain managers think that you've got it in for their team, or certain supporters?
Well, they could do, and I mean that's a reasonable assumption to make. But I certainly don't have it in for anyone. Anytime I go out onto the field, though? I wouldn't say you get accused of it, but there's the odd comment thrown at you every now and again from different teams. But people need to remember, as a referee, my greatest goal is to referee an All-Ireland final every year or certain provincial finals. And the only way I can do that is by ensuring my name is in the hat when the appointments committee come round to making the appointments. And if I'm not doing a good job in my matches, if my advisory reports are not good, my name won't be in the hat. So despite what any manager or player feels, I'm out there to do a fair job for both teams, but mainly for myself. And I'm going to say I'd be quite ambitious like this, to put my name in the hat to referee an All-Ireland final. So I understand the teams and managers are so emotionally involved in their own setup and their own match that they might not see how unemotionally involved I am in it and how ambitious I would be about trying to referee All-Ireland finals.
I think you've been refereeing for a decade now. Did you feel that you would have got an All-Ireland final by now?
I would have hoped I would. I've been close the last 3 years in a row in that I've refereed quarter-finals, All-Ireland quarter-finals in the last 3 years, and generally one of the All-Ireland quarter-final referees tends to referee the All-Ireland final.
Oh, except not this year, if you're James McGrath in hurling.
Yes.
So James McGrath's statement yesterday, the first two lines are in quotation marks. If I put stuff in quotation marks, what does that mean?
It means you're quoting something that's not your work.
I'm not your second choice, nor your backup plan. Either choose me or lose me if I'm not your first choice. I've been Googling this feverishly all morning to try and see exactly where it is.
You did say it was a Beyonce lyric.
Well, I was thinking about this, you know, put a ring on it, surely has to be a theme tune going around in your mind when you're typing this out. Yeah, screw you, Cork Park, you betrayed me.
That's exactly what James McGrath was. He had a dancer on either side of him, and he was typing up his statement yesterday.
Right, that's not to make too much of a ridiculousness of this very important situation. So important that Marty Morrissey had to go down and do the lead story on the 6-1 News. I mean, come on.
It was. Sorry,
it wasn't the lead of the 6-1 News. It was the lead on the 6-1 Sports News.
There's nothing else going on in sport at the moment. There's definitely no European Championships. It's not All-Ireland semi-final weekend. There wasn't literally 2 All-Ireland pressers in the hurling. There was nothing else going on. So you've got to kind of sell the lead, I guess.
So I'm googling it and it's not coming up. I did assume that it was a Beyonce lyric when I first saw it in quotation marks. But actually, the stuff that comes up is like The Notebook and Paulo Coelho and a bunch of those quotes on Pinterest where people put up this notion when they're lovesick.
Yes, when you're 16 years old and lovesick.
Well, I mean, I don't want to cast aspersions on their age. I'm not saying that they're not mature people who are doing this. Choose me or lose me. I'm not a backup plan and definitely not a second choice. And then the Notebook quote is, she wanted something else, something different, something more, passion and romance perhaps, or maybe quiet conversations in candlelit rooms, or perhaps something as simple as not being second, or not even second.
We need to start a petition. Now James McGrath is got a summer free next year. We need to get him into Love Island, because he would bring the emotional intelligence right the way up with quotes like that. He knows what love is, James McGrath. He knows what it's like to be heartbroken, clearly. So that is a quote from The Notebook.
No, well, the Notebook one is like a long kind of... but the choose me or lose me, I'm not your second choice is like one of those things that just becomes an internet meme. So I have been unable so far in the 10 and a half minutes that I've been Googling this to discover exactly. But it's definitely relationship advice for 15-year-olds.
Oh, yes, it is. The 15-year-olds can learn a lot from James McGrath.
Yeah.
Over the last 24
hours.
Like,
hungry for retweets. You type this type of stuff out. Or you see it on one of those bot accounts and then you cut and paste it and then it's like, oh, look at how amazing I am with my relationship advice.
It's such an amazing statement that it made me spurt out the words, hope you're okay, hon, when I saw it yesterday. It's an amazing statement.
And look, obviously he feels a little bit let down by the fact that he's not going to get to referee the All-Ireland final. And it did look like he was on course to referee the All-Ireland final, and so I'm sure it was a bit of a shock to the system. However, what the hell are you doing releasing a statement on Facebook 3 or 4 days out from the All-Ireland final? It's like, if you want to go...
10 days out.
Do an interview afterwards. Complain about how the refereeing system is broken, as opposed to, it didn't suit me this time, and I am the big story here.
Yeah.
Now, he has been actively encouraged by Marty Morrissey in that. And so I'm like, in fairness, he wrote the story himself on his Facebook page. So anyway, that's the crack. Coming up today, the sports page, we'll get to them right now. Bring you the Dan Leavy interview around about 8:10. Talk to you about today's sports news with Darren a little bit later on as well. And going to be talking about Gaelic football. Lee Keegan and Mossy Quinn are talking to us then. And then Jessie Barr is going to talk to us about the European Athletics Championships, which have been pretty interesting so far. Good stuff. Time for the sports newspapers review.
OTB AM.
Thanks to Screwfix.ie, championing the trade with a dedicated call centre.
Okay, so we're going to start with the broadsheets, and I think we have the Irish Independent for you this morning. We do. Ref McGrath quits over All-Ireland final snub. Angry Westmeath man feels he has been betrayed by the association. Ooh, it's strong stuff with a quote from Beyonce Light. I nearly called Gardaí over abuse. This is the minor hurling manager in Galway saying that he was going to call the Gardaí over a verbal abuse that was given to a member of the county board about a decision that he had made. And he goes on to make the case that he doesn't actually want to be the Galway senior hurling manager now because of the abuse that has been heaped on him. But then does also say that it's just people on bar stools and they never cheat or anything in their lives. So Miguel Delaney's story there on the back of that as well is that Manchester United are in for Harry Maguire for £75 million sterling because Toby Alderweireld, that deal won't get done.
Yeah, Harry Maguire is more expensive than Toby Alderweireld due to size of head, is what I'm hearing in all of this. Like Alderweireld...
Colour of his passport, obviously. He's got one of those new English blue passports.
To be fair, length of his contract is a real reason. What were we saying yesterday, 40 million for Alderweireld?
26 now and 40 now and 26 at Christmas.
Like, I'm sorry.
I don't know if that 26 Christmas is written down anywhere.
I like Harry Maguire, but you're paying that 40 million for Toby Alderweireld every single day. I don't know why they're not going to just do that.
Managers add to hate mail revelation. This is more Micheál Donoghue, obviously. We'll hear that a little bit later on too. And it is Reid wins spot in 200 metre final. Recently qualified sprinter is second on debut run in green singlet. So that's the long running passport saga, I guess. And so now we have a sprinter.
Yeah, he said that the green singlet made him felt like a super suit yesterday, running in it. He was brilliant. He's in lane 8 today though, so it's a bad draw. Tom Barr, interestingly, is also in lane 8. They both go in finals later on. I think it's something like you got to go back decades and decades and decades to find any Irish sprinter who's got to the podium at a European Championships. So
Mark English going this morning as well, 800 in the 800 metres.
Yeah. So yeah, it's a big evening, potentially a big evening for Irish sprinting as well.
And Joe Tamani, the recently arrived back at Leinster, actually asked for a move to Leinster when he saw the writing on the wall at Montpellier. So that's interesting. Always good to have players wanting to come and sign for your team. It'll be folly not to back Ollie Schneider-Jans.
Yep.
Can lead the USPGA day one attack. So this is Dave McIntyre likes this bet. It's pick the leader on the first day. You tend to get good odds on some outliers, players who clearly aren't going to win the tournament. But
Fred Couples at the Masters is a very popular bet for everybody every year.
Yeah. And then Alpha Centauri at home with Jessica Harrington's Super Filly, whose exploits have lit up the flat season. This is Jessica Harrington tearing up trees in both flat and National Hunt. The front of the Examiner this morning, Premier Class, Gutsy Tip set up final clash with Cork. This is the under-20s game last night, where I think it's fair to say there was fire and brimstone, 3 sendings off.
Yeah. 3 sendings off indeed. Tipperary going through. Is it going to be futile, I wonder? Everybody writing and etching Cork's name into the trophy already, it seems. But as the old saying goes, you can never write off Tip. It does kind of merit pointing out the idea that, it's great for the senior championship this year that, after Limerick progressed and then we had the replay of Clare and Galway, that we had kind of moved away from the traditional powerhouses that Kilkenny, Cork and Tip weren't going to feature at all in this All-Ireland final, which seems so alien. And then you just look at the 21 final and it's Cork against Tip, that we should really be appreciating
this single
year.
1 year.
Yeah, not just in terms of the standard of hurling, but in terms of the variety that we're getting, that the amount of games that could have gone either way when, the tradition often held the power in those sort of fixtures. So I think that future may be returning to similar colours in a couple of years.
All right, the golf obviously gets a lot of play in the papers this morning as well. And then the Irish Times, their lead stories, well, it's not actually the lead stories there in the Irish Times, is it is golf. Shane Lowry. Pleasantry's over, it's time for Glory's last shot. And a picture of Shane Lowry playing out of a bunker ahead of today's opening round. Lowry says he's in reasonable form. Had a decent weekend last weekend away from the WGC, and then the rest of it is just getting football preview and the fact that Thibaut Courtois is actually going to join Real Madrid for 35 million. It's not a bad deal for Real Madrid. Yeah,
job done. But the thing is, Chelsea are going to get Kovacic on loan going the other way, which that's pretty good business for Chelsea to actually get something out of it for this current season, because you do feel that they need something like that, even just to carry them over 1 year until Maurizio Sarri kind of figures out what this club is, figures out what he's got to do to move it forward. That it is desperation time in the transfer window at the moment. Like, it is deadline day today at 5 o'clock.
Yeah, so this isn't the traditional, to reiterate the point that we keep making, is that so Chelsea still have all their players, but they might not have by the end of the month.
Yes.
That midfield could be decimated, so getting a midfielder in seems like preparing the way for one of their superstars to leave.
Yeah, I see that there's been less transfers in July this year than in all the past 5 Julys in the transfer window, which is mad to think about it when you think that today is the deadline. June was higher than previous Junes by a tiny amount, but not to the extent where you would say, all right, they've got a full month less to actually make their transfers happen. So it just, maybe transfers aren't in vogue anymore. Maybe Premier League clubs actually aren't that interested, and they see that what they've got at their disposal is actually better than what they can possibly sign. A lot of bad transfers perhaps hampering that. The last one for me is the Irish News. If we could pull that up for there, I'll tell you exactly what we have. Ignore moronic cowards, advises ex-Armagh boss. That's Paul Grimley saying, try and just ignore the fact that people are going to abuse you. And then Bradley hoping to keep Tyrone Place for Farney clash. Obviously, after a decent performance last week, Mark Bradley's hoping he's going to start at the weekend. Yeah, the back page of the Irish Daily Mail this morning is the only way is up for Rory. That's ahead of the USPGA starting this evening. Galway boss opens up in his hate mail, as we've discussed. And the main story here, get spending. Sanchez tells United to splash the cash if they want to win the title. Back page of the Herald this morning, we'll have Mossy Quinn a little bit later on with us as we preview the Dubs clash. You can see Alan Brogan's cliff notes here. I can't see Dubs being beaten. Neither can a lot of us, I think. I think we'd all concur with Alan Brogan on that. Blues make late moves. Courtois joins Real. Kovacic on loan deal, and Kepa record signing, and McGrath not going back on decision, says Frank Roach. So that's the James McGrath story as we were just speaking about. The back page of the Mirror then is around Jack Grealish. Have a heart. Grealish desperate for Tottenham to make final deadline day transfer move and save his Champions League dream. Jack Grealish, Spurs, would he be devastated to lose him?
Yeah, I mean, come on. There's no point in supporting Aston Villa if they don't have Jack Grealish.
Yeah, it's going to be a big fee, a huge fee for a championship player, but then you think about the valuation of Jack Grealish to Aston Villa, £30 million is probably what you're going to look for, really.
Like, they should just say, no, we're going to keep you and get into the Premier League because you're the best player in the league.
Can he get him into the Premier League?
But, like, they were nearly there last year, you know?
Yeah.
And then this year they actually have owners who will be able to put some money in again at Christmas. Like, and they're right there. So, yes, keep them.
The back page of the Irish Daily Star then, in terms of... I was going to say Irish players, but I forgot Jack Grealish isn't Irish. Bazanou's heading to Etihad. This is an exclusive. There's been a couple of stories around Gavin Bazanou this week. He's obviously the star goalkeeper with Shamrock Rovers. Apparently he's going to Manchester City. They're going to pay an initial fee of €350,000. Who's going to join them during January. So they'll agree to a deal now and join him in January, which would be a huge move for him. Of course, Paul Lennon with the exclusive there. He had the story as well on Monday. The special nun as well. Jose unlikely to get a signing. For all our audio listeners, it's None, not Nun. They are not calling Jose a member of the clergy. And Fitz, it's time to shout stop. That Fitzmaurice story, and you got James McGrath there on the back page as well. I always feel like when I read
your own story in the newspaper the next day.
No, I was going to say whenever I read stuff like the special nun, I feel like headline writers should put in like, "Am I right?" in brackets after it. It would add kind of a further exclamation point.
Or boom boom.
Yeah. Red line day. Am I right? Says the back of the Sun. Sanchez, buy big or forget Prem Crown. And ache or break time, or AEK or break time. Brent issues a rallying cry. Celtic won, AEK Athens won. Courtois real steal. And name of the game, Cork City believe they can succeed where all other Irish sides have failed and knock out Rosenborg. Fighting talk from John Caulfield ahead of that one. And the UK back pages, the front, I should say, of the Daily Telegraph sports section is give me my dream move.
No.
Why not?
Because, no.
You know, dreams are there to be made.
You're supposed to be a Villa fan. You grew up in Villa. Come on, shut up.
In Birmingham.
Yeah, come on. Shut up, Jack.
But he's desperate to secure a switch to Tottenham.
Oh, come on, it was your dream to play for Ireland one day.
Major deals.
We all know your dreams can change, Jack.
Are you saying that he's lying about his dreams?
I'm saying that he just wants to get rich. And I mean, obviously, fair play to him. He should.
I think.
I mean, if there was any natural justice, he'd be released from Aston Villa and free to illuminate the Premier League.
Yeah, true that. Back page of The Guardian is Chelsea's glove story. Kepa seals world record £71.6 million move as Courtois exits Bridge. And the new entry at number 4, Ruud hails exciting talent of 20-year-old Pope as he prepares to bat an unfamiliar position on Test debut at Lord's.
Is it not ridiculous they're paying so much for a goalkeeper at Chelsea when they knew the Courtois situation was coming to a head, that they're paying twice what they're getting back for Thibaut Courtois for a lesser goalkeeper?
But it's not why they paid so much to sort out the situation.
But
before, like today at 5.
Yeah, but like that's like today at 5. Last Christmas, last summer, the previous Christmas, the previous summer, you saw that the contract was ticking down and he wasn't signing a new one. So you're like, okay, we're going to buy a replacement. We have to wait till the last minute and pay the buyout clause when we could have got him last Christmas. Again, for 20 million.
Yeah, but who was the manager then? And the manager knew he was gone at the end of the season. He's like, I'm going to leave that big problem.
The manager's not making these signings.
Yeah. Maybe they thought they could have kept Courtois. That's probably the simple
so you buy a replacement for 20 million and you keep him on your bench and you give him a couple of games and you go, oh, look, Thibaut, you better get good or you better sign this deal. Like, there's definitely... It seems like for a club who generally have done quite well in the transfer market in terms of signing a bunch of young talent, farming them out and making money off that this one time they've massively overpaid for something that they could have got for 50 million cheaper 5 months ago.
Potentially, we don't know. Like the Rob Green signing happened quite well. I was going to say early in the window, but it happened early in that mini transfer window we had post World Cup. So they knew that they needed some sort of transfer backup in that position. Maybe there just wasn't an available keeper of their liking. I mean,
he was available. He was going to sign for Real Madrid for 20 million.
Kepa.
Yeah.
Was he? Yeah.
At Christmas.
At Christmas.
Yeah.
Right.
Dan didn't want to sign it. He said no. He nixed it. At the time, there was the allegations that he nixed it because his son was a goalkeeper on the books of the club, and so there was like some kind of, "Whoa, what's Zidane doing? Who the hell is this greatest player we've ever had?" Almost, and 2-time winner of the Champions League as he was then. What the hell's he doing? But actually, he didn't want the squad to be upset in the middle of the season, and it's all worked out okay for them. They've got Thibaut Courtois for another 50 million.
Do Chelsea care? If Kepa turns out to be goalkeeper of the year, do they care that they paid £71 million for him?
Apparently, Abramovich has stopped spending money like the way he used to, and wants the club to be profitable and stand on its own. Well, maybe that's their entire transfer budget blown.
Maybe it is, but it doesn't matter. They've blown it on the second last day of the transfer window. Not too much business is going to happen today.
Do you think so?
I don't think. I think this is going to go down in history as the most miserable transfer window ever.
I think there's going to be a lot of panicked stuff today. Because it's so far away, and because managers don't know what's going on, I would expect that there'll be like...
Who do Chelsea panic by?
I don't know about... the Grealish deal, I think, will 100% go ahead. I think the Alderweireld deal, I'm not sure. If I'm Pochettino, I'm in that room going, don't sell him. You haven't got me a replacement. Don't sell him. I will rubbish you to high heavens for 6 months, and then I will leave, and then who's going to fill your new stadium for you then?
Yeah. Pochettino hasn't bought a single player this summer. I don't think Daniel Leavy would have the temerity to go to Maurizio Pochettino at the start of the summer and say, you're not signing anyone. I think Maurizio Pochettino, you're not buying anyone. I don't think Maurizio Pochettino can be told that or can be kind of absolved of all blame for what Spurs have done in this transfer window, which is nothing at all. So if they lose Alderweireld, Pochettino has to take some element of blame. Sure, it would be a bad move from Leavy to sell him tonight.
Christina Aguilera was in Dublin yesterday, around the corner on the streets. Did you see?
Was it her lyrics? Was she having a chat with James McGrath?
Maybe, yeah. Were you a Christina Aguilera fan, or was she like before your time?
A bit, kind of retrospectively, I wouldn't be a fan, but I would have familiarised myself with the work a bit later on than the work actually occurred.
So not contemporaneously, not when you were like 12, 13, you weren't?
Yeah, I was I suppose 7 when she first broke out.
And you didn't see her on the streets of Dublin yesterday?
I didn't see her on the streets of Dublin yesterday, no.
You did see Dan Leavy on the streets of Dublin yesterday in the lifestyle store on
Grafton Street.
On Grafton Street, yeah. So here's how the conversation went.
What is this you're sporting here? What is the colour? Can I call it camo?
I believe it's bottle green.
Bottle green, okay.
You probably be able to tell better. I don't know. Yes.
It's got like an outline of all the counties of Leinster I can see on the jersey.
Yeah, I just told you that. So
that is definitely not my own knowledge.
Recycled information. But apparently it's the imprint of all the counties on it. If you look closely.
Well, it's a good shot. I can't wait to see it in action later on this year. I did want to chat to you a little bit about your summer, and we were just saying before we pressed record here that Jack McGrath's wedding had the biggest impact on my Instagram feed of any sporting event I've ever seen.
Yeah. It was great. There was a lot of old players, some of them still in the squad, some of them that have retired recently, and Jack's wedding was brilliant. There was a pretty big footprint. Rob Kearney put up about 8 Instagrams.
Yeah, more I'd say.
Yeah, so it was brilliant. That was a great trip.
There was no post from yourself though from the wedding. Why was that?
No, listen, I'm on my holidays. I wanted to kind of stay low a little bit. And also, I may have misplaced my phone.
Right, okay, I see.
During that trip, but we're not going to get into the details of that.
Yeah, let's not. Are you somebody who kind of snaps everything you do when you're going around the place? I mean, you are technically a millennial.
What do you mean by snaps everything I do?
Well, a lot of people of our own age group would go around and, Instagram story everything and...
snap.
Yeah.
Okay, snaps, as in recording now. I'm actually pretty bad for it, as in don't take a lot of...
Yeah.
But I should probably invest more time into it, but I don't.
Why is that? For sentimental reasons?
Sentimental reasons, consistency of posting. If I get a picture, that's cool, I'll put it up, but I have no focus at all.
Yeah, gotta keep up the brand as well, I guess. The summer is an important one. I guess it's your next summer. You're not going to get a real full summer. There's obviously going to be a big focus towards what's going on in the autumn next year. So, has there been a time to reflect on what you've already achieved, especially in the context of what happened last season?
Yeah, we had a bit of time off. As I said, I went to Portugal for a week and kind of chilled out around Dublin and stuff. You do definitely need a little bit of time to get away from the game, especially coming into this season, because it's pretty much a season and a half with the World Cup at the end of it. So a break is necessary, but really looking forward to get back into the swing of things now.
How does the dynamic change this year? Because like undisputed best team in the continent. I mean, last year there was always this sort of point to prove that Leinster could go and claim the European Cup back. Whereas this year you're at the top of the summit now. Has there been a big shift, certainly in pre-season?
No, we just know that we have to keep getting better. Every team that you face is going to get better in their off season. They're going to get new players in. They're going to maybe get a new coach or whatever, and everyone's looking to be the best. So we know that the standard that we set last year would have to be improved on again if we want to come in any way close to retaining our titles.
How much is that mentality from a team to be the best reflected in your own individual goals to be the best as well? Because obviously you've come through in one of the most competitive positions we've seen in not just Leinster rugby but in Irish rugby over the last 5-10 years. So has that given you a drive to kind of push on further to make sure that the next Dan Leavy, whoever is the next great back row, doesn't push you out of position?
Yeah, I think it's a squad mentality. When you have the depth like Leinster do, everyone is fighting for a position, which is great because it drives the standard up. You can't really sit back because, if you're in ill form or don't perform for a few weeks in a row, you'll lose your jersey. So it's a tough environment to be in, but it's very good for driving the standards, and that's one thing that we pride ourselves on Leinster, is just pushing each other and trying to get the best out of each other.
Yeah, Johnny Sexton stepped up to captain now this season. I presume that dynamic hasn't changed that much because he was always a big leader in the team.
Yeah, Johnny's always been, a pretty big voice, along with Issa and Reese and a few other lads. They've always had a serious role in the leadership group. So, when Issa did leave last season, I think Johnny would be the natural successor. So, congratulations to him, and I'm sure he's going to keep leading from the front like he does usually, and as well with Reese. Yeah.
Just reading a little bit from your school days over the past couple of weeks, like a lot of people said that you were eager to learn back then, that the hunger that you had with that schools team was unlike anything they'd seen in that team or in that generation at that time. Is that something that's kind of innate to you, or is there a moment in either your underage era or in your senior era where you realise that this is something that you have to make it to the very top?
I think if you're not driven and you're not really hungry to be the best you can be, you're not really going to succeed, especially in our environment. I'd say every one of Leinster's players are incredibly driven and hungry as well. So it's the culture that we have, and if you want to be the best and if you want to win trophies, you have to have that kind of culture from within to drive each other and drive the standards as high as you can get them.
Dan Leavy in Lifestyle Sports yesterday speaking with Owen at the launch of Leinster's shiny new Adidas kits. Now Darren Cleary is in studio with us with Sports News. Darren.
Chair, thank you very much. Shane Lowry, the first Irish man in action to tee off at the USPGA Championship. The Offaly native out just after 1:30 this afternoon before Padraig Harrington tees off just before 2. Paul Dunne, Rory McIlroy will tee off slightly after 2. Well, the European Tour has apologised to Tommy Fleetwood after they mistakenly paid his prize money for the Open to a different Tommy Fleetwood. An American man posted a screenshot showing he had been sent $154,480 by the European Tour. That man, a PGA Club pro bearing the same name. The organisers apologise for what they called a clerical error. A friend of the man paid the money. Greg Thorner was with him at the time when he discovered that he'd been sent it. He tweeted this screenshot of his online banking profile, which revealed the 6-figure sum wedged between a supermarket payment of $14 and a service fee of $16.
Yeah, nice. I don't know why the hell he fessed up to it.
Well, he confessed, and then he actually said, you know what, I was going to spend buy a new driver with it, but then I realised it probably isn't my money. So maybe Tommy Fleetwood, I think he's won 6 or 7 million in prize money this year.
He can afford to send him a driver.
Might send the guy a new driver. It could be a kind thing to do.
Well, that's the thing. I mean, if you're a real golf man, then you will do the honest thing and fess up.
Good golf man.
Except, say, if Phil Mickelson won this weekend and a fake Phil Mickelson got sent the money, that guy is definitely keeping the money. That's keeping in character with Phil Mickelson.
And no one would even blame him.
Nobody would blame him whatsoever. That is karma in a nutshell.
That's what Phil needs. Meanwhile, in the athletics, Leon Reid, Thomas Barr going for gold at the European Championships in Berlin this evening. Barr in lane 8 for the final of the 400 metres hurdles. Reid runs in his maiden major final since switching allegiance from Great Britain to Ireland. He's also in the outside lanes for the 200 metres final. Zach Curran, Mark English both go in the 800 metres heats this morning. Laura Wiley completes in the triathlon this afternoon, while after his top 10 finish in the 1 metre springboard diving early this week, Oliver Dingley gets his 3 metre springboard campaign underway. That's in Edinburgh this morning, followed by the men's 4x100 metres relay. That's in the swimming team's heat. Well, Joe Tomane has revealed that he approached Leinster and asked them to sign him. The 17 times cap Wallaby international swapped Montpellier in France for sunny Dublin to move to the Blues. New rules surrounding overseas players in the top 14 meant a release was imminent. Tomane says he came knocking on Leinster's door and not the other way around, and he encouraged his agent to make the deal happen as Leinster was the club he wanted to play for.
Well, actually, my situation in France was a bit different. I got released because the foreign rules were happening. And then I called my agent straight away and I told him to see if Leinster were interested. So they actually didn't know that I was available.
So you knocked on their door?
Yeah, pretty much. Because like I said, I knew where I wanted to be. I wanted to go to somewhere that had a winning culture, and Leinster was it.
And what was it? Was it the winning culture? Was it the young-ish squad?
For me, it was just the winning culture at the start, and then you come here and then you see why they win. You know, how the boys go about their training, how they take care of themselves, how professional the environment is, and then you sort of understand why they've been so successful.
Rugby's back. Is everybody ready for it? You will be in like about 8 days, 9 days after the hurling final and just before the football final. Like, oh yeah, I'm ready to watch some rugby now.
Yeah, I kind of feel the buzz of it. The jersey launch is usually when it kind of is like, okay, it's real now. But Leinster's, I can't believe it's not Munster jersey, is probably not one to get us too excited.
I like the Leinster jerseys. I think you're going to have very similar jerseys, obviously, because they're both Adidas now. So,
like, I think there is much more potential for us to stay engrossed by rugby for the entire season. Like with the Premier League, it comes to February and you're like, oh, City have got it all wrapped up.
Relegation battle.
And it's the same thing. Whereas in the rugby, it's like Pro 14 at the start. It's like, okay, I like this. I like the blend of youth. And then the Champions Cup comes in, adds new energy. Six Nations comes in.
It's also a World Cup year.
Also a World Cup year.
We're now like T-minus World Cup time. Everything is... It's like Cheltenham overrides everything to do with the national hunt. It's like everything now. Every performance is like, ooh... Is that a starting World Cup level performance?
Yeah, the excitement kind of builds. It'd be great if you could somehow take the Pro 14 window that no one cares about during the Six Nations and just peel it back a bit so we have a little bit of rugby to talk about in these kind of weeks. Because these weeks can be dead quiet at times and you'd actually love something. You feel bad then ignoring.
It's almost like you could lead with the story of a referee who doesn't get the opportunity to referee the All-Ireland final.
In other news, the transfer window will slam shut today or probably close with a whimper. The Premier League clubs have come to the conclusion that transfer business after the season starts is way too much disruption. It means for the first time the window closes before anyone gets onto the pitch. In a World Cup year, that's proved a bit troubling. Some clubs will not have seen their best players for weeks. They'll only be coming back after extended breaks. The rest of Europe can still sign players for a couple of weeks too, which makes it a little bit troubling because the deals may not be completely done. The main deals, though, to be done. Tottenham hopeful of landing Jack Grealish from Aston Villa on deadline day. A new bid, though, in excess of €35 million will be required of there to make that happen. Paul Pogba being linked with a move away from Manchester United, while Jose Mourinho keen to strengthen his squad defensively. Jerome Boateng, Toby Alderweireld and Harry Maguire all rumoured to be on his radar according to the papers this morning. Some Irish news to bring you. Cardiff have made an official approach to take Bournemouth midfielder Harry Arter on loan until the end of the season. The Irish international reportedly having a medical at the club today, while the pressure is on Celtic after being held to a draw by 10-man AEK Athens in the first leg of their Champions League qualifier. They were reduced to 10 men with the score at 1-1. Konstantinos Galanopoulos dismissed after receiving 2 bookings in the second half. Celtic had a number of chances to win the game, but they couldn't put one away. And finally, a huge night for Cork City. Turner's Cross expected to be packed to the rafters. Rosenborg on Lee's side for their crucial Europa League qualifying clash. John Caulfield has some fitness concerns ahead of the game, centring on informed Gary Buckley and the experienced defender Damien Delaney. Delaney had a tussle with a goalkeeper in training that left him with a knock. Buckley's groin injury flared up after the SSE Electricity League win over Waterford.
It's nothing to do with that, completely separate to that. It's just kind of sparked a thought in my head. I wonder if when Eamon Fitzmaurice talks about referees being rivals and they're warming up and they have a collision like Damien Delaney suffered there, and the referee gets completely taken out of it before an All-Ireland final, and then the linesman steps up and referees the game. And that would really
That's
cement
grassy
things.
knoll stuff.
And yes, I'm giving an idea to whoever the linesman is for this year's All-Ireland final.
The standby referee, you mean?
Oh, okay. So you mean this is a future thing? This didn't already happen?
No, it's not. I'm thinking.
You're talking about something I don't understand.
I've just been given a brainwave there.
Okay, right.
If I'm the linesman in an All-Ireland final, I'm taking the referee out of it.
I mean, how do you
stepping up to the plate?
How do you do it in a way that you don't get blamed for it, though?
You just accidentally collide legs. You just somebody was calling me there. I turned around, and when I was turning my legs,
or you pay one of the players to do it for you.
Would be a good shout, yeah.
I'll give you a good free there. You get one free.
You get him at the stretching. The stretching would be the perfect place to get him, because you know when you're doing the calf stretching, you're leaning against each other.
Oh yeah.
Just take a step the other way, and the other guy's calf goes.
Did your cruciate go? Sorry.
Oh, hard luck.
Take that. The ball was there, I think. Right, let's move on. Micheál Donoghue has been talking about the level of abuse that he has been getting as the manager of... Are you done? Sorry. Have you
that's me.
Okay. I didn't want to prematurely... Anyway, Micheál Donoghue here talking about abuse with Maura Trass.
As I said, I think it's the unfortunate world we're in, and society, where people think they can take certain liberties, and I think every manager receives probably some mail, from different sections of the public, and I think it's part and parcel of it, and whether you take or read much into it, that's your own prerogative. I think sometimes people, on the outside don't really appreciate or comprehend the amount of work that's been put in, particularly number one from the players, the sacrifices, and as I said, the commitment they make is just incredible, and it's at the end of the day it's an amateur game, and what everybody associated with every team, the amount of time and effort they put in, it is to a professional capacity, everyone goes in to do the job the best they can, and as I said, everyone's entitled to their opinion as well, but sometimes it probably just goes a step too far.
Yeah, that full Micheál Donoghue interview, full of good stuff. The All-Ireland press nights obviously are done now from the hurling perspective, so it'll be radio silence from both camps probably until the actual day of the game itself. Mossy Quinn is with us this morning. We've also got Lee Keegan with us. Mossy, how are you doing?
Good, Jar, how are you?
What's the level of abuse that you got as a free taker? Was it written in blood? Were the letters written in blood?
The worst one I got, I think I told you this before, I got a phone call actually after we were beaten, I think it was 2003, I've tried to blank from my memory, probably my first year we were beaten up in Bar actually, I think it was 110 to 3 points, we only scored 3 points, it was probably one of our darkest days, and missed a couple of frees, and got a phone call on the Monday night. Some fella rang my mobile, just abused me for a couple of minutes. I was kind of in shock for a couple of seconds, then just hung up, and that was it. So that was probably the height of it, really, from a personal, in terms of.
Actually ring you to talk to you, isn't it?
Yeah, so you wouldn't know. I was only 21 at the time, 22. So again, you could have had someone could have been in college, or it could have been just lads who obviously might have known someone who knew someone.
Okay, yeah.
But it was. I didn't take it too seriously now.
And were they serious, or was it like a...
it was serious enough in the sense that it wasn't a group of lads laughing in the background on speakerphone kind of going, this is a bit of crack, it was someone just rang saying, jeez, you were brutal yesterday, that was a disgrace, yeah. So
did Eamon McGee have a story about they used to make phone calls?
I think they tried to ring Dermot Conley, I think they got Dermot's number for a while, and they tried to ring Dermot at night time and stuff like that, so I don't know, I actually never asked him whether that was true. Eamon McGee, certainly he's true from his side of things, I never asked Dermot.
But I imagine if they're ringing, it's when they're pissed and they're like,
I'd imagine.
How you doing?
As
opposed to the kind of anonymous stuff.
Yeah, I would say so.
You'd hope so. Yeah, do we have Lee Keegan with us? No, we'll get Lee in a couple of minutes because I'm interested to hear what what level he's got it at. But anyway, look, that's been a bit of a sideshow this week, which I wonder if it kind of helps the teams preparing for this weekend. That bizarrely, a referee who didn't make the cut for the All-Ireland hurling final is a bigger story in the week of the All-Ireland football semi-finals than the All-Ireland football semi-finals, which is madness. But
yeah, it's pretty incredible, all right. Yeah, I'm still trying to get my head around that one. I'm still kind of waiting for someone to pop up and say, look, this is a joke, or this is it's just ridiculous at the moment, to be honest. Seeing the 6 o'clock news last night, I didn't see it live, but I just obviously saw the clip subsequently. It's just all a bit surreal, isn't it? Like a referee, but then You know, for me, like, you could spend a long time talking about referees, but the best referees are the ones that go unnoticed and are the ones that kind of to go in, do their job, and are happy to get in and get out. I suppose the last 24 hours have highlighted that, you know, some of them aren't. They need more than that, and you know, I think that's maybe that's I don't know if it's consistent, but it's certainly not something you'd be looking out for as one of the top referees, I would say.
No, it turns out Mark Clattenburg, that style of refereeing is fairly consistent across sports. It turns out the fact that Mark Clattenburg is a brand is something that other sports have been adopting and going, yeah, that's a good idea, I want a bit of that.
Yeah, I was trying to think back to the kind of, like, the first referee I remember in kind of sports was Pierluigi Collina, and it was more to do with his appearance, I think, was unique, rather than, obviously, and the minute you saw him, you identified him because he looked different than every other referee. But I have a recollection that he was a good referee rather than he was there for the limelight. You remember him because of how he looked rather than anything down. I was trying to work out going, obviously the Premier League has brought this kind of celebrity referee, and you could argue in rugby you've kind of Nigel Owens is a little bit like that, but again, that's more so to do with his kind of, I would say, outside of the pitch in terms of his whole story rather than his performances. But again, also, he's a pretty good ref. Would he be considered a pretty good ref?
Yeah,
as
I think
well?
so. Like, he lets the game flow, the high scoring games. Now, people get a bit pissed off with that sometimes, that like he can let too much go, but like, does everybody generally want the game to be good, or do they want the game to be refereed as harshly as it can be within the rules? There's
well, for me, like, again, and without, like, GAA referees have a tough, because, like, again, you sit here and you say, well, what's a tackle? How do you define a tackle? So every referee, there's a little bit of scope there. For me, the biggest thing is how a referee communicates with players. So it's my biggest bugbear that there's nothing worse than having a referee who cannot communicate with you or refuses to communicate with you. That's the most infuriating thing. Every player is not going to agree with your decision, and I'm not saying you have to explain yourself every time you blow your whistle, but sometimes if there's a big call and someone asks you a legitimate question, they ask you in a manner that's appropriate and they're not shouting at you, not roaring at you. Some referees don't even respond to you. To me, it just makes situations worse, and it's very, very hard that if you're in a key moment and you want to know, like, something simple like, was that on me or was it on you, or who was the one that fell there, and some of the referees won't even engage with you, and I think that's where players' frustration grows. And I think they need to be approachable. They need to have that little bit. The levels of communication between referee and player, to me, has to be of a. And that's why one of the great things about watching rugby, I don't watch a huge amount, but when you do, I think that's the thing that stands out in terms of how, like, the referees are willing. Okay, might be only the captains, and it's slower, and there's more breaks in play, so there's more opportunities for them to talk to them. But certainly, I think it's something that is a positive when a good referee does it.
It seems like the best way to hold them to account in terms of communication is actually put a mic on them. At least that way you can identify which NFL refs are making the bad decisions, because the entire stadium and the entire world hears them. Same at rugby.
Yeah, I think so. And I know there was a bit of controversy a couple of years ago over the documentary about the All-Ireland football final. Was it the Dublin Kerry one where it was mic'd up, and it was the low scoring day, and it was tough conditions. But okay, again, there's things you might need to flag. Players and management might need to know that in advance. But is that a bad thing, that if a player knows that he's going to be, like, it's mic'd up again, does that make them behave a little bit better?
Completely.
I don't see an issue with it. So, it might be a bad idea, particularly the inter-county level. Like, obviously, people always throw in, if you're talking about rule changes, talking about different things, it's not scalable to club games. So that's okay maybe at the start, but we still have an inter-county football and hurling product that's there at the moment that should be done to the highest level. So if you can help and it might help a referee. Referees might say, well, do you know what, we'll come out of this learning from it, and, like, people on the outside will get to learn, well, what are we hearing and what are we having to deal with on the pitch, you know?
Well, that's the thing. If people see inter-county footballers behaving in a better way, then will the club players not behave in a better way as well? Is it just because it's fair game at all levels? It's a top-down approach, surely.
I think so, yeah, and I think it's certainly worth looking into. And again, like, we often talk about rule changes, and it's a big thing at the moment in football. Like, you know, the way the game is going, and it's so defensive, and bodies back behind the ball, and all this type of stuff. And people like Eamon Fitzmaurice talking about 2 referees. Again, I don't disagree with that, but I'd actually like to know what referees think about the game in terms of, like, again, maybe during the off season. And I know you don't want referees coming out publicly in the sense of what's happened this week, but certainly there's enough referees who are smart, understand the game, and they might be able to come up and say, well, do you know what, here's a suggestion we have that might help us do the game.
Totally.
And, you know, so I think there has to be those lines of communication across the board. I think once they're, I think the better they are and the more open they are, I think the better game we'll end up getting.
Let's talk a little bit about the football, because it shouldn't have been overshadowed this week. They're 2 really properly mouth-watering games. Galway will believe they have a good chance against Dublin by virtue of the performance they put in the league against them. And yet, it's hard for me to understand exactly where Dublin are. Like, it felt like Dublin have played within themselves, even within the Super 8s, like even within games. Now, the Tyrone game maybe is an indication that they're not as far along as they thought they were or as we thought they were. But the Donegal game, like, they were massively in control of that game, really, from the get-go. So what's the truth?
I think they were massively in control of the Tyrone game as well, to be perfectly honest. I was up in Omagh that day and I was really impressed with them. And again, I think someone said to me beforehand the game was played on Tyrone, or at half-time, the game was being played on Tyrone's terms. But Dublin were 2 up at half-time. Tyrone never really had that purple patch where, you know, you felt like the crowd really got into it and Dublin were under pressure. They never got a run of 4 or 5 scores. They never got a goal. And it felt like Dublin, okay, they ended up winning by a goal and the last couple of minutes tightened up a little bit. But I think it was very much, they would have been very happy in terms of how they controlled the game, it felt like they were never really on that back foot, you know. And I don't think a team has put them there this year. And Galway in the league final were probably one of the closest to do it, but I suppose after the last week we're probably second guessing now where Galway at, and have they put so much into getting to this stage of the year? Have they kind of peaked already? You know, are they better than where they were when they played the league final? I would say Dublin are definitely better. They haven't really produced that eye-catching performance just yet. You know, they haven't really clicked up front where you kind of, like, they obviously put up a big score against Roscommon, but where you see, you know, Conor O'Callaghan, Paul Mannion, a couple of these guys haven't scored as much in recent games, and you're kind of wondering, is there a little bit of doubt there from whether they have that in them this year? They seem to be kind of more, it's not as swashbuckling, I suppose, in terms of going forward with the ball. There's not as many really, really fluid moves where you go, that was really slick, that was really nice to watch, you know. But they've been really efficient and they're getting through games. And I think that is the question, whether Galway have kind of they're kind of on the way down from their year's work, or whether they have another big performance in them this weekend.
Alan Brogan was saying in the Herald this morning that when you compare this team to 2013, clearly that 2013 team has a better collection of individuals, but this team is a better collective. Would you agree with that?
Possibly. I think it's hard. Like, some of those players that you're taking out of that 2013 team, like obviously Bernard was a scoring machine at that time. Dermot obviously was that kind of X factor, and even Paul Flynn when he was at his height. But maybe Niall Scully and these guys possibly don't get the credit they deserve yet. Like, Niall's getting through a lot of work, but the 2 goals he scored against Donegal and Croke Park that day, brilliant goals, brilliant individual goals, and people probably don't see him as a scorer. He wouldn't be as consistent yet as maybe what Paul Flynn got to, but again, if he's chipping in with a goal or two, if he can produce moments like that, then and again, the likes of Con obviously last year, some of the goals he scored, I actually, some people again are talking about how Con is struggling a little bit this year. I don't know that he's struggling. His finishing probably hasn't been to the same level. But he's had 2 or 3 goal chances in a lot of games. So, bar the Tyrone game, I think there wasn't too many goal chances created, and you know, it feels like he's one early goal away from kicking back into life again. You know, and I wouldn't be overly.
Kind of terrifying.
Yeah, well, I wouldn't be overly concerned. Like, you saw the early goals he scored last year against Tyrone in the semi-final, and then against Mayo in the final. And again, he's creating those chances. And again, in the Leinster final, the Laois goalkeeper Graham Brody made a couple of brilliant saves from him. You know, he's making a couple of really athletic saves. So, if you weigh it up pound for pound at the moment, probably that 2013 forward line. But they were probably a bit further along in their career. I think if you give the likes of Scully, and even Brian Howard's probably going to end up playing wing forward at the weekend, like where they're going in their first year or two, you know, I think that's probably, you probably need to give them a bit of time before you compare like for like.
Who's replacing Howard in the backs?
Well, I suppose when I say in the half forward line, he'll certainly play around the middle third. As in, I think if you look at the Tyrone games, probably the last game to look at, and I think Jack McCaffrey or John Small effectively came in for, was it Paddy Andrews, so they were effectively named as a forward, but I would imagine they more lined up in the half back line, and Brian Howard would have played in around either midfield or half forward. So it's kind of, that middle third is pretty fluid in that Dublin team. So again, if I would say, I would expect Jack certainly to play, and I personally would pick John Small every time. So I think if you're putting those 2 guys into the half back line with Keane O'Sullivan, then you'll likely see Brian Howard push a little bit more forward.
So this is the first choice team that we're going to see maybe for the first time this year?
Yeah, now I don't know what it is in the sense that like that, is there a conversation to, like Cormac Costello showed very well again against Roscommon. Okay, you've got the caveat saying, well, Roscommon had nothing to play for and a bit of a challenge game field, but Cormac's been very good in the last couple of games. And again, you're talking about the forward line being more of a unit. to me, without Dermot and possibly without Bernard up to the same level, I think Cormac is probably that X factor. Cormac and Conor, the two forwards in that Dublin team at the moment, who when they get the ball, they do that. They're likely to do that something different, and they can get, they're asking different questions of defenders. They're more dynamic. They can go right foot, left foot, and so Cormac is probably one of the ones that you could argue whether he's into that best 15 or not, and he's probably the one pushing, particularly from a forward perspective, what way he's going to go.
Does everything else pick itself a little bit?
I'm very interested to see what they do with Owen Merchant. I think he's been very, very good. And the couple of games he's played was probably a bit of a shock for people to see outside of Dublin for him to start the Donegal game. But he was really impressive for me against Donegal and against Tyrone, and he kind of had man-to-man roles in both of them, but they were a little bit further out the pitch. So again, I was saying I would see Jack and John Small and Keane in the half-back line. So do they pick Owen then in the full-back line? And if they Galway tend to play like you've an Ian Burke there playing corner forward who's very, very good.
Yeah.
Merchant obviously doesn't match up with Damien Comer, so again, do you put Owen Merchant on a Shane Malcher and Ian Burke, I presume, is the question this weekend. But then you've obviously got Johnny Cooper, Philly McMahon, Mick Fitz, so do one of them lose out for Owen Merchant? So I suppose then that's probably the other question for me. Merchant's a very, very good defender, very, very quick, probably one of the fastest on the Dublin squad. So again, for pace in terms of he did his role brilliantly in the two games against Donegal and Tyrone, kind of tracking the kind of playmakers a little bit deeper. So well, again, the question probably is whether they trust him to do one in the full back line this weekend, or whether you go back to one of the other guys.
Yeah, okay. We've got Lee Keegan with us as well. Lee, good morning to you.
How you doing, lads? How are you?
Yeah, good. So we're talking about this Galway-Dublin match and trying to get a handle on where both teams are, and it's hard to fully assess because we kind of haven't seen both of them at full board just as recently as we would have liked to. Where do you think Galway are at the moment, for example?
I suppose last weekend, a lot of people have discussed Galway saying what a poor performance it was against Monaghan, and that they had one eye in this game, and they probably did. They were in an unusual position where they were top of the group at the time. They were already qualified. But if I were in the Galway camp, I would have been quite disappointed. It was your last home game of the year. You're playing one of the top teams in Monaghan, and judging by the way they named their team, I fully expect them that they're going to go for that game last weekend, and they just look so flat and lethargic. So if I was in the Galway camp this week, I'd be looking for a huge backlash, particularly now we're coming up to HU against Dublin, who again look to be kind of in third or fourth gear at the moment, and we got to see a lot of their kind of, I suppose, fringe players against Roscommon. And the worry for Galway is a lot of them look really hungry and really fresh, as Mossy said there. The likes of, I suppose, Cormac Costo hit 9 points the weekend, looks really fresh, really enthusiastic about getting a game time at the weekend. And instead of kind of blowing a huff about it, they're really hungry to get back in the pitch and start against Galway. So it's a funny one for Galway, but I fully expect them to really push Dublin hard at the weekend. I expect big performances from the likes of Damien Comer, who caused huge hassle in the league back in the league final there a few months ago. Shane Welch needs to step up again at the weekend. I thought he's very quiet. A lot of the key players. I think the biggest problem for Galway is missing Paul Conroy in the middle. He just has that kind of dynamic to get up and down the pitch. He can chip him with a couple of scores. So he's definitely a guy that they're going to miss hugely. But I expect Galway to have a huge backlash from last weekend.
When you guys were coming up against Dublin, what particular shape were you trying to affect on the game, like as a group? How did you want to play? What were you trying to do to get Dublin out of their rhythm?
I think Dublin have cracked nearly every game plan out at the stage between defensive, man-to-man. I suppose in terms of ourselves, we very much went man-to-man predominantly on their kick-out. Now, not the easy thing to do when you're playing a team as fit and as hungry as Dublin. So, but I suppose we had a team that were well, I suppose, physically and mentally able to match them for long periods of time. So we tried frustrating their kick-outs as much as possible and try and get a half forward back to protect maybe our midfield half-back line. Now, in saying that, the way Dublin can move the ball from one end to another is a different nature. So, at times we struggle, at times we did really well. But I suppose we tried cracking the kick-out to a degree. Now, you're not going to do it for a full game. If we got 5 or 6 kick-outs, which is the target of ours usually, then we're doing really well. We knew we were right in the game. And I suppose the biggest thing for us is not to be, 5 or 6 points down after 15 minutes. We always target the first 15 minutes. Like, granted, they got the goal early in the All-Ireland final last year. but we responded quite well, and we were very much in the game at half time. We really frustrated their forwards. We really ran hard at them from different angles. So for Galway, I think the running game will really suit maybe at the weekend. You know, they like to drop deep, and players like Shane Welsh, players like Kip Brannigan, Dan Leavy, these guys have huge pace, and they need to exploit them kind of space in Grove Park and really run at Dublin, because they have the athleticism, they have the youth, and they have that fitness that we've seen over the last few months. Like, they've only lost 2 games in 14, so like there's no reason why they can't go at them the way they did in the league final.
When you guys were trying to create chances as well, it's interesting to hear you talk about running at angles, because when you think back, that's exactly how people will remember the goals that you guys have scored against them, your own in particular. So was that part of it as well, or did those chances, is that something that evolved in the middle of the game? Had you identified that in the build-up? Look, if we get a ball, just keep possession and keep running.
Yeah, we did, and I suppose there's no such thing as you can plan for a goal, or it takes time, and we worked on different pieces in training up to the All Ireland, and especially playing in Dublin different games. So, like, I think the thing with Dublin is you're definitely going to get chances, which we found we were always going to get, but it's how many of them goal chances can you convert, and unfortunately we only ever scored one, maybe. In each of the finals, and it just wasn't enough, because again they have too many players that can go off the bench, too many good players up front that can score a lot of points. Like Dean Rock punished us big time last year in the All Ireland. He hit a lot of his frees. So I suppose our biggest strength was at the time was we really ran hard at them from different angles. I suppose we tried getting the ball wide and created, I suppose, that kind of gap in the centre, because we identified Keegan Sullivan being their main man that really protects their full back line. And it's just his reading of the game has just been outstanding. I think he's been one of the best centre backs over the last 5 years in terms of his reading, his the way he plays the game, the way he just covers every angle for Dublin there. So, but we definitely identified a couple of guys that we could really run hard at and exploit, especially if we got a turnover them. So that was definitely one of our real, I suppose, positives when we were going to Dublin, that if we got a turnover and we ran really hard at Dublin, that we would create goal chances or a free or a scoring chance. And you know what, we did that for a lot of the part in the finals, but when you're coming up against a different beast in the last quarter that can just bring on some of the best players of the bench, then you're really starting to struggle, and the lungs are really starting to burn.
Yeah. Lee, do you subscribe to the theory that Dublin haven't shown up fully in any All-Ireland final? Because it seems that was a little bit of an injustice to Mayo. It seems that you've got to take some credit as well for shutting them down to a certain extent and giving the illusion that they're not living up to the excellence that they show all the way through and up to including All-Ireland semi-finals over this 3 in a row so far.
I think that'd be probably a bit disrespectful to Dublin, to be honest. I think All Ireland are hard won. People always kind of harp on about our kind of hard luck story and sob story, but I suppose when you're coming up against a team of the nature that you mentioned, Dublin, they had to turn up to play. If they didn't, we would have won basically, because we played well enough in last year's final and the year before to win the games. Now, granted, we were very lucky in the drawing game back in 16 with the 2 own goals. Maybe that was the only time that we can probably have a little sulk about. But I would say probably very harsh to Dublin. Like, Dublin just, I suppose, have been there over the last number of years. And Mossy, you know yourself that when it comes to the crunch time of games and you look at Dublin, they never panic. They just seem to, they really just follow what they're really been like trained wise. Like they get the ball. Like when I scored the goal last year, I openly said it, that you look at the Dublin guys and they just didn't flinch. Like, it was all about getting the next ball, and James McCarthy goes up and scores a point, or Dean Rock gets a free, pops over the bar, and it's like them scores that really deflated us last year when we thought we had the game. Not thought the game won, but we had a huge momentum behind us, and it's just the way Dublin can handle them different types of pressure. And I would think it was injustice that you'd say Dublin had to work really hard to win their All-Irelands against us. We worked them really, really hard. And I think, if you look at the games over last year, if you look at the accumulation of scores in the final, it's only been a point each game or something like that. So, like, for Dublin, we went hard at Dublin for them a number of years. And obviously, it's very disappointing saying that we didn't win one, but you have to give full credit to Dublin that, when it came down to the crunch time in each of them games, they just had the player and they had the experience to get over the line.
Mossy, it's interesting to hear Lee talking there about the chances that teams get against Dublin. And that's true. We've seen even the worst teams in Leinster be able to create goal chances against this Dublin side, because they're not as compact a defensive unit as some of the other teams that are out there, and yet they've actually got better as a defensive unit as the seasons have gone on. So will there be chances for Galway this weekend to run those angles that, remember Lee Keegan's goal in particular last year?
I think there will be, and again, it's the nature of playing against Dublin and the system Dublin play. They kind of back themselves. They, again, up in Oma that night, they were very much playing two men in their full back line. A couple of balls came in 50-50 and Johnny Cooper burst out with them and ends up winning them, and there's a lot of trust that Jim puts into his team, and to me it's the sign of a very well coached team. They're very good players, but having the likes of Keane O'Sullivan there obviously helps. But I think that the coaching that's been done within the Dublin team in terms of how they want to work, how they want to set up, and they're willing to, they can play different styles. Like if a team wants to get 13 behind the ball and force Dublin to be patient with it, they can obviously be patient with it, and that's being patient with the ball and without the ball. They're not going to go gung-ho like they did, and they obviously learned so much from the Donegal game a couple of years ago, and I think that's highlighted by the fact that you can input different personnel into that defence, and it's still pretty similar, and I think that's what I mean about it being very well coached. You're not relying on one or two individuals, and but look, the way the system goes, if teams are willing to get the ball, I think you have to, like what Lee was saying, I think you have to play man to man. I don't know that a counter-attacking team is going to beat Dublin at the moment. I don't think Dublin are going to get caught by that again. I think Dublin have to have a really, really bad day for that to happen. So I think any team that's going to be good enough to beat Dublin is going to have to be willing to go at them a little bit. They're going to have to go let ball in early, get runners coming off the shoulder, pace. Now that the flip to that is, if it doesn't work and you get turned over, if Dublin turn you over, like turnover, obviously some of the biggest goal chances come from when you turn someone else over. Lee said it, when they target trying to turn Dublin over, it means you can't get a chance to get set up. It means Keane O'Sullivan might be in that position. It means one of the defenders are generally reacting rather than being proactive and being set, and I think that's the big thing. That's where Dublin thrive off that, the amount of goals Dublin get off turning over opposition teams, and then they get the runners coming and they've got the overlap going. And I think that's, again, Galway have to be brave. I think any team that's going to really take Dublin on have to be brave, and Mayo have been that in the last couple of years. The character and the kind of desire for Mayo to really push it is why they've gotten as close as they have, and why they're the team that have pushed Dublin the closest.
Lee, one of the things that we always did in the media in particular was like, how do you beat Dublin? And that was kind of maybe misreading how Dublin were winning games, because Dublin were clearly identifying the opposition strengths and going after them very quickly as well. So maybe what we should have been doing all these years was, how will Dublin actually beat Mayo? How will Dublin this weekend beat Galway? How will they nullify Comer? How will they nullify Walsh? What will they do, do you think?
I suppose Mossy just kind of touched there. Like I mentioned, Galway's running game could hurt Dublin, but I suppose the flip side of that is, if Galway decides to play, I suppose, not in a negative fashion, but in a very conservative fashion, like we've seen the Donegal, the Tyrones over the last couple of years, Dublin have really cracked that code. So if Galway does that the weekend, like I think you're just going to be in for a bit of, I wouldn't say a big win, but I'd say Dublin are just going to be very comfortable how they're going to handle that, because they've done it so often. What I find interesting in league final is when Galway did run hard at them and they did commit numbers, the damage the likes of Comer would do, particularly in the first half. And then with the flip side of that, in the second half, when they were retrieving too many numbers back, when the game was in the melting pot and they were trying to hang on for 1 point lead, you could see the frustration starting to come to the likes of the Comer, the Burks, the Welches, because the ball's not getting up there, because Dublin have realised, if I squeeze these now, we have a huge chance of getting a turnover or a score here. And as we said, Dublin thrive in that, and that's where they get their goal chances, their scores, their frees, whatever it is. So I really do think Galway have to be brave here at the weekend. It's their first semi-final in a long time, so there's no point being conservative and you're looking back after the game thinking that we could have went for this. I think they have the calibre of the players to do it, in the likes of the Shane Wells, Shane Burke, the Comers. These guys are really class forwards, top forwards, and they need to get ball. They can't be starving the ball. And what frustrates Galway, I suppose, what frustrates viewers, is seeing the likes of Comer back in the full back line or half back line, because the ball is not getting up to him. Sure, Dublin will be only laughing at that, because he's 80 yards away from goal. What damage are you going to do there? So I think, Kevin Welch has a lot of big decision this week in terms of what way he's going to set up. Now, obviously, I do expect Galway to drop numbers back. Their half of the wing backs naturally do it anyway. You've seen that in most of the games this year, but I just love to see them just really get the first ball and go really hard at Dublin from the throw in, and just see how, I suppose, they react to that. If they get an early goal chance or an early point chance or whatever it is, and see how they react from the kick out after that. But I think Galway need to be really brave, because I think Dublin will know what way they're going to set up, and if they do that the way we're thinking they are, well, then I think Dublin have the game all day.
Yeah, just on that Damien Comer point, Lee, just to quote Darragh O'Shea yesterday for anybody who missed his column, he says, "For one thing, I don't think they've solved the Damien Comer problem. Since he rampaged around Croke Park against Dublin in the league final, he hasn't had too many standout games. Roscommon held him out at the Connacht final until the closing few minutes. He had a bit of joy against Kildare, all right, but Kerry and Monaghan both kept him to a point." Do you think that's a fair appraisal of his summer so far, Lee?
I would say probably it's a true reflection, but not in himself, because I think it's more frustration that ball's not going into him, to be honest. I again, I know I said like a running team sometimes can hurt them, but like when you have a forward that's as strong and as good as Comer, you need to get the ball to him. And he was one of the guys we identified hugely over the last couple of years, and he's caused hassle numerous times. I thought we got to grip him well in our championship game, but if you're forward that class and that calibre and he's not going to get ball, like you can see how frustrated it is. And Mossy, you know yourself as a forward, you're not getting the ball in there, you're not going to make the runs because you know the ball is never going to come into you again. So I suppose the thing is to do is you just start drifting back and back and back. Before you know it, you're in your own half-back line picking up soft ball. And we mentioned about Michael Murphy against Dublin as well, that he was playing in the half-back kind of midfield role. Sure, you're talking about one of the best forwards of a generation that's 50, 60, 70 yards away from goal. What damage are you going to do there? Because the ball has not been kicked into him. So I think it's important that Galway recognise the likes of getting Ian Burke on the ball, that we've seen him assisting in so much over the games, get his hands on the ball. And look to use Shinwell, look to use Comer, look to use the runners like Brannick and Daly and these guys coming into the game. I think that's hugely important for Galway at the weekend. And if they don't do that, then Dublin will sniff that out, and they'll be looking at winning by 5, 6, 7, 8 points, and before you know it, the game is over.
And the flip to that is just that not only is Comer taken away from a Galway attacking perspective, like Philly McMahon generally marks if there's a big physical forward, so similar to what Aidan O'Shea would have been, or Michael Murphy. Philly usually goes in that. So think about from a Dublin perspective, where does Philly want to play the game? Philly wants to be as far away from the Dublin goal.
Full forward, basically.
Yeah, effectively, yeah. But as in, he doesn't want to be in the full back line, in his own full back line for 70 minutes. So if Damien Comer drifts and ends up playing around midfield, all of a sudden Philly McMahon's thinking, this is brilliant, I have a bit of freedom here. And not only is he not, he doesn't have to pay as close attention to Damien Comer, because if he's 50 or 60 yards from goal, he knows he's got a couple of teammates close to him that he's not going to score a goal from there, obviously. So then Philly gets the opportunity to go and play. So not only are you taking away from Galway's attacking threat, you're adding then to Dublin's attacking ability.
Exactly.
And I think that's one thing Galway can't fall into that trap, or teams playing against Dublin can't fall into that trap, which they have done in the past.
So you need to pin Dublin, certain key Dublin players in the full back line, like whoever is marking him.
I just think, again, it goes back to that word, you have to go for the game. I think if you kind of drop back into your shell and continuously drop fellas back deeper and deeper, and again, Keane O'Sullivan plays a kind of a sweeping role, and there's a lot of the language used around defensive systems in football can be a bit frustrating at times. People say, they play sweepers or they play mass defence. Like, what's a mass defence? Is it 13 behind the ball? Is it? I don't really have an issue with teams having working wing forwards where 10 and 12 drop back at times, and all of a sudden, but you still have 4 forwards up there, and then you might free a wing back, and Mayo have done that brilliantly in the past, and I know under Pat Gilroy that's the kind of system we would have tried to play with Dublin, but you would have tried to keep 4 forwards up. I wouldn't consider that an overly defensive system, whereas, and again, Dublin at the moment, when you said, how do you make Dublin mark someone? Like, if a high ball is pumped in on top of Damien Comer, you might see Johnny Cooper in what looked like in a sweeping role, but Dublin will effectively still only have 4 defenders or 5 defenders max, because opposition teams will have dropped everyone else back. So he's not technically a sweeper. You've got your kind of 4 or 5 defenders. They'll probably keep a +1 at times, maybe a +2 back there, but it wouldn't be a situation if other teams played 6 forwards. They're not going to bring another sweeper back and have that extra defender at all times. Yeah. I think it's more a case of if opposition teams are sending their own forwards back, then it makes sense to keep an extra guy back there. So I think it's more about keeping defenders honest. I'm a big believer in that. I think the further your key forwards are away from the goal, the easier it is for the opposition to kind of say, well, look, they're not going to do any real damage here, So I think any team you play against,
and then they're safe to go and overload the attack by joining in with it.
Well, there's a bit of freedom. There's a bit of freedom there that, again, where Keane O'Sullivan might be more content to sit, whereas Philly might get on a ball and say, you know what, I have an opportunity here, and Philly's kick passing is very good. He can give, he can go, So from that side of things, it just changes the dynamic of it. Whereas if he's in his own full back line, he's obviously not in a position to say, right, well, I'm going to bomb forward here as many times as possible, So I think it's about keeping what we tried to do last year,
Mossy. We actually, what we tried to do was create something, especially with Andy. We knew Andy's moving inside was key to keep the likes of, like, we identified Fitzsimons as a really top defender, but we said if we keep him really deep, that might occupy Keane O'Sullivan, so it might give our centre forward that bit more time. So we got quite a bit of joy from that as well, where Andy was moving left and right. Now, not necessarily might get the ball, but we had a bit of space to run in the middle then with our midfielders, half forwards, half back. So, we as Moss said, we were keeping their forwards, our defenders really honest with a lot of off the ball running, and particularly leaving Andy as a pivot in there for our runners to come off. And ultimately, we actually got the goal off that, because it was his third, fourth, fifth run that got on the ball, and it was just a pop off and put in the back of the net. So it's stuff like that where I think they can use Ian Burke to set up a Welsh or a Comer. So I think that's really important, and that dynamic, you said, is hugely important to keep their defenders honest.
So that template is there really for Galway to have a look and see exactly how you guys have got joy against them over the years. Have Dublin evolved looking at them this year, Lee? Do you think, like, have they become a different team who actually learned from the example of what you guys were doing to them last year?
I fully agree. I think Dublin have realised that the nature of the way they played since probably 2013 or 12, that running, like that, I suppose, that craziness in games that's between ourselves, particularly that up and down has, you've seen them mature really in the way they've, I suppose, kept the width of the pitch, how they're adapted to keeping the ball for a long period of time. And people maybe have an issue with this for keeping 4 or 5 minutes of the game, but to be honest, when you're good enough to do it, you can do it, and Dublin are good enough to do it. So I think if you look, they're not going up and down, they're not going to hold for full games at a time. They're really patient, really measured in how they're attacking teams now. And I suppose you see the way they're looking at teams, they've identified that maybe if there is a mass defence, or if they're man-to-man, or if they're dropping forwards, Dublin seem to figure it out very well in the early stage of games. And I think that's a real sign of maturity, and it's a real sign of a winning team, and they've won over the years because they've adapted quicker than other teams, and they've reacted so much quicker than what we have thrown at them or any other team has thrown at them. So I've seen a huge level of maturity shown in the Dublin team, and it's the same guys that were there over the last number of years. You know, we're talking about the Keane O'Sullivans, the James McCarthy's, who again is having another terrific year for Dublin, really driving them on. Brian Fenton again seems to be getting better. Kieran Kilkenny, these guys have been around a long time, and they're only getting better, and they're in the prime of their football career. So I've seen a huge maturity in the way they're setting up their team, the way they're playing the football, and again I expect the exact same performance again on Saturday against Galway.
We had Eamon Fitzmaurice on the show yesterday, and Owen was talking to him a bit about how obsessed you must be as a footballer or involved with football at the moment when there is one of the greatest teams of all time in their pomp. And he was making the point early on in his career he definitely would have thought a lot about them, but as time progressed he needed to think about himself and his own team a bit more. I think maybe with Dublin maturing the way they are, it's time for everybody to get obsessed again and kind of see how they can counteract what Dublin are doing, particularly this season.
Yeah, definitely. I suppose the biggest thing from our group when we play them, we try not to get obsessed with Dublin, because I think a lot of teams, if you get too obsessed with what they're doing or what they're going to bring, then I think you're taking away from your own game. And what we did is we did so much analysis of them with Donny Buckley and these guys who do ample amount of work behind the scenes. But from players, I suppose we know that their players so well, we know their system. So for us, when we played them, we just didn't get obsessed with them so much, because I suppose in earlier years, that's the way we maybe looked at games, that we had to beat them, we had to do this, if we didn't do this, what's going to happen? So we just went in and we tried to implement our own game plan from start to finish. And, you know, we got huge success because of that, because we weren't worried that Jack McCaffrey was going to take off every 5 minutes, or Brian Fenton was going to catch every ball. You know, we worried about the guys that are on the pitch for ourselves, and I think teams need to take this new philosophy that, you know, Dublin are one of the greatest teams, and we know that, and that's not going to change overnight. So it's just about trying to, I suppose, how can we stamp our own game on this match? And like, I go to have a huge chance this weekend. Like, a lot of them are in the prime of their shape as well. Like I just think, instead of becoming obsessed with Dublin, become obsessed with your own game and how you're going to work that the weekend. And Galway have a huge chance here. If they've any bit of belief or any bit of craziness about them at the weekend, they're just going to go for this game. And I think that's huge the weekend. And, you know, I think it's really important that Fitzmaurice said that. I think we just get too obsessed with, I suppose, Dublin. Yes, they are the greatest team, but how can we change that in our own group? How can we, you know, we need to change our game. We need to do something different, because it's just what we're doing at the moment is not working.
That's fair enough. Lee, we'll let you go. One last question though. I've seen several newspapers call you Leroy Keegan in print recently. We were like, is this an official name change? Should we be calling you Leroy? What's the crack?
Just decided to put the Roy on for a bit more interest. So the birth name is Lee, but Leroy adds a bit more dynamic.
Grand. And so are we officially now? Is this it? Like in public, we should call you Leroy from now on?
Yeah, Leroy's good. I don't mind that. If you're happy, I'm happy.
Nice one. Perfect. We'll go with that. Leroy, good man. Thanks a million for joining us.
Thanks, guys. Cheers. Take care.
Leroy Keegan with us this morning.
I love that. It adds a bit more dynamic. That's so much going on in that phrase.
Yeah.
Leroy Keegan. Wow, I'd say, like, because we'd seen it in reports, we'd seen
just casually slipped in, out of nowhere,
in like serious.
It's his Twitter handle as well. So it's it's his own. Obviously, it's something he's.
It is his Twitter handle. I looked it up there, but actually, it's still Lee Keegan. You know the way you kind of have your name, you can change it down. It's like so, and you'll have to change that one too. There is this sense though that like when Dublin innovate, everybody has to come back and look and go, well, what are they doing this year that's a bit different? It's probably not that much different from last year. It's just more pronounced, I would suggest, that they've got better at the recycling of the ball, that they've come up against teams where it's been more profitable for them to recycle the ball and keep it for as long as they have. Like last year against Tyrone, they just went and killed them in the first 20 minutes. And then they played effectively the last 50 minutes of that game recycling the ball because the match was over.
Yeah, I think so. I think they are just evolving. Like, in fairness to them, and that's again going back to how well coached they are. They don't just sit and say, "Well, we won the All Ireland last year. Let's kind of go and do the same thing again." And for me, you can break the game down into a certain amount of plays. And I think when Lee, like even when Lee referenced there when he got the goal last year, Dublin didn't flinch. I think one of the great things and the testament to why they've won so many close games in the last few minutes of games, even in the as you're going into, even as the clock ticks into the 69, 70 minutes, there's generally 5-6 minutes left to go. Dublin are smart enough and they're so prepared, so well coached that they know, well, we're still going to have 4, 5, 6 plays here where we're going to have 6 attacks. Can we score twice in these 6 attacks? Can we stop them scoring? And when you can break it down and when you're that well tuned in, it gives you that kind of certainty. It gives you that ability to perform in those situations. And I fully agree with what he said about getting obsessed with other teams, because when we were in the 2000s, we came up against the Tyrone team that were an incredible team, and even the Kerry team at that time, and we lost games to them, and we used to spend so much time, probably Tyrone more so nearly than Kerry. I don't know whether people, and even at that, I think a lot of teams, when I was coming into Kerry, a lot of teams looked at the Armagh team in 2002 and then Tyrone when they came in and kind of took over. And I don't know whether they felt that was more, it was easier to replicate that than whereas you kind of looked at Kerry and said, oh, well, that's just Kerry, and you didn't kind of look at what they did. Whereas you're kind of looking saying, well, if Armagh could do it or Tyrone can do it, then why can't we do that? And we would have spent a lot of time looking at them and trying to work out, well, can we do what they do? But I think it did take a bit of time to realise that there's no point trying to mimic them. You don't have the same personnel, you don't have the same skill set, so you can't mimic what a Jack McCaffrey can do or what a Brian Fenton can do. But can you tweak it, or can you learn from them? Can you look and say, well, what do they do when they have the ball? They keep that space. Well, how does that relate into our system? Which goes back to what Lee was saying. You have to find something that works for particularly the group of guys that you have there. You can't just say, well, Dublin play that system, I'm going to play that system, or we couldn't say Tyrone play that system, because if you don't have a Brian McGuigan or whoever it might be that maybe pulls the strings for a team, or and I think you have to be smart enough, and I think good coaches are, you have to tweak it to suit yourself rather than saying, well, that's what the best team do, let's just go and do that, because it's not as simple as that.
Yeah, like this Galway team, it's very interesting when you look at that period at the end of every game where Dublin, if they're anyway in the game, they're going to win the game, whereas with Galway, like Eamon Donoghue was writing in the Irish Times this morning and points out statistically how good Galway are in the last 15 minutes, that this could be the first time we've seen now where it's level pegging heading into the end of the game, and you actually give the opposition to Dublin a real chance. Yeah, well,
to me, the reason Dublin finished strong and winning so many games is because they've the best squad. They've the best 21, 22 guys, and until someone comes up, but it's not just the 15 anymore. And we've been saying it for a couple of years, and I think that's one of the reasons why they are as good as they are, that they know they've guys who can come in and make an impact. So if one or two guys are having an off day or someone picks up an injury, Dublin generally don't feel that as key as some other teams might do. But I actually think this weekend's going to be really physical. I think that the league final was quite a physical game. I think Galway will need to bring that element of really challenging Dublin players in different ways. And I think if they do stand off them and let them play, I think they will be picked apart. And I think there might be close for 50, 55, 60 minutes, but there will be that sense of inevitability. The last 10 minutes, Dublin will probably just pull away. And that's if they don't do what they did to Tyrone and get a good start. If Dublin get an early goal and go 4 or 5 points up, you'd imagine most of the ground would be like, well, can Galway come and chase the game? Is that the way they're built? So
the one thing is that Dublin haven't so far this year, and they haven't needed to because of the circumstances, they haven't killed teams in that circuit. Like they did the lesser teams in Leinster, but in the Super 8s they kind of they played around. I would expect this.
They did a little bit, and that was the one thing up in Omagh. They were halfway through the second half, they were really comfortable. They probably went 4 or 5, maybe. I don't know if they hit 6 up, but they were certainly 5 up at one stage, and you kind of had the sense that if they really went after it, they might have gone further in front. Now the flip to that is they might say, well, then are we leaving ourselves exposed to give away a goal, and the whole blows the game back open again. So but yeah, they probably were a little bit more, because I know, for instance, when Kevin McManaman came on, he added that little bit of pace, a little bit of directness, and there was a couple of times he made really good runs and he was on the shoulder once or twice and it wasn't given to him. The ball was recycled and they came back out, whereas I was kind of sitting there going, okay, that ball definitely could have been given to him, or maybe last year, the year before, was given to him, and Kevin runs in and he did score a point. He did score a point that night. He got fouled for a free. So there was little bits, the few times he did get the ball going forward, he made a positive attack and play, whereas there was 3 or 4 more opportunities that could have gone to him that didn't, and Dublin were content to keep possession for an extra minute. Now, I would say Dublin, when they're not keeping possession just for the sake of keeping possession most of the time. They are trying to kill the game. And to kill the game and to draw a defence out. A lot of the time it is because they've so many men back, and if you draw it out, then you do have that pop ball. The last score, I think they did get up in Tyrone, came from something like that, where they eventually did draw Tyrone. Tyrone were getting really desperate, but it took until nearly injury time for Tyrone to be willing to commit that forward, and then Paul Flynn is in on the end of it, and he kicks the game sealing score. So it is a fine balance, but I think Dublin are probably erring on the side of, well, let's just kill the game rather than let's hold possession, score a goal. So I think that's maybe something they might look, if they're a little bit more aggressive this weekend, you might see that.
All right, good stuff. Mossy, enjoy the game. Thanks a million.
Thanks, Chair.
We'll preview Sunday's game on tomorrow's show as well for you. Now, Harry Redknapp took some time out of his Castlehaven coaching duties to talk to Dave McIntyre. Have a look.
Yeah, I had some funny stories actually. I had a boy who owns a local golf shop, bought me a present round and told me not to open it until he told me. And then he rang up one day and said, Harry, don't open that box. I've got another box for you. And then about 2 months later, he bought the other box round. And the other box, the day he bought the other box round, I lost my job at Tottenham. And what it was, I had a pair of England shoes, golf shoes, that he told me not to open because Roy got the job. So he had me a pair of Tottenham shoes made. And when he bought the Tottenham shoes round, the day he bought the Tottenham shoes and dropped them off at my house, I was in London, lost my job at Tottenham. So I did say to him, look, I'll give you 10 grand not to buy me another pair of shoes. But he actually bought me another pair of QPR shoes that I left of my own accord there, so it wasn't a problem.
Yeah, check out AIB.ie for more from Harry. It's going to be interesting to see how himself and Gianluca Vialli get on over the next while. Right, let's move on. OTBAM is live this morning with Screwfix.ie, championing the trade with a choice of over 20,000 quality trade products. Check out Screwfix.ie for all of your needs. Now, Jessie Barr is with us. Jessie, good morning to you. How you doing?
Morning, how are you?
Yeah, pretty good. So what are your nerves like on a day when a massive European final is happening and your brother's taking part in it?
You know what? I'm not too bad now. My mum's here in the background in the apartment and she's like a hen on eggs going around. When I really get nervous is when I start seeing the hurdles being laid out in the track and I see them start to be laid out. that's when it really hits me, okay, he's about to run. Up until then, I'm pretty chilled. But even now that you're talking about it, it's made me a little nervous. Okay,
sorry about that. And are you allowed to talk to Tom in the 24 hours in the build-up to it? Or is he like, look, don't ask me, I don't want to talk to you? Or is it like exactly, let's talk about the soap opera or the football or something completely opposite?
Yeah, no, Thomas is very chilled. I mean, they had a day off yesterday and we were doing a bit of a tour around Berlin. So we actually ended up near the hotel. So we went to visit him for about an hour. And just kept it very, how are you feeling? How are you feeling about the race? And then just chatted about just general stuff. He wants to hear what we're doing. He would love to be out being a tourist. He gets very jealous, I think, when he hears. But no, he's in good form and he likes to keep things kind of normal and relaxed. He's not someone who likes to be, in this kind of bubble. He wants to kind of keep things normal. So, yeah. We won't see him today now. We might send him a text, but that'll be about it.
Yeah, fair enough. Berlin is a great city to do some touring around in and not a bad place to have the crack.
Yeah, absolutely. It's great for them to be over there as well supporting him because obviously this time last year it was just devastating for Thomas Barr in London and like speaking to him out in Abbottstown a couple of weeks ago talking about that and everybody had travelled over. I think we got Jessie back in the line there. Jessie, it's we're like as I said there, I was speaking to him a couple of weeks ago and like I hate to bring this up, we may as well just get it over with now, but that illness in London last year when it was just a year out from Rio, he's obviously still such a high profile name, but you felt that 12 months out the momentum was still going with Thomas at that point, and he comes down with that virus that was going around the entire village, it seemed, in London, and all the Barr family had seemed to travel over to see him perform.
We did. We all travelled, including our younger sister and my granny, so it really was a family affair. And that's the thing about Thomas, that's his kind of character. The first thing he said when he told us was, I'm so sorry that I can't run. So instead of saying, I'm really, it wasn't about him. He said he felt really guilty that we'd all travelled to see him and he was sick. And we said, don't mind us, we feel bad for you. And it was funny, it was actually the 1 year anniversary of him being sick yesterday, up on my Facebook memory. And we kind of all were able to remember where we were, the news. It was like one of those, big moments for us. I had just landed in London when I got the text. Mum was in nursing him with a wet cloth all day, with a damp cloth on his forehead. So, he's out for redemption tomorrow for last year, or not tomorrow, today, obviously. But yeah, I think pressure is on, and I think he's very much aware there's a lot of Irish eyes on him today, especially after London not going so well.
Absolutely. It's a very interesting case when you look at his season so far, because he's been ratcheting it up as the weeks have gone by, and his times are getting quicker, but at the same time, I suppose his season best at the moment won't be enough to get him on the podium tonight. But there is this aura around Thomas that he could pull out a performance that will get him on that podium. Like, what is it about him that he's able to do that, to pull out that performance when the pressure is really on? He must love that energy, and he must love a full Olympic stadium, as it will be tonight, you suspect.
Yeah, he's a championship performer. I mean, it's Derval O'Rourke who's always the person who stands out as being that person. Thomas has kind of filled that role. He really does pull out his best on the day. And the one thing he did say about his semi-final is the whole thing with having a bye straight into semi-final, him not having to run a heat, that actually set him back. He likes to warm up into the races, get the heat out of the way, get to know the track before he has the kind of real high pressure, because the semi-final is the most high pressure race. So I think he did say his best performance probably will come tonight, because he had his kind of stressful race yesterday or on Tuesday. But he's a championship performer, and I've no doubt that he'll rise to the occasion tonight. And he's very relaxed. He didn't care what lane he got. He just is happy to be in the final. Anything can happen once you're in it.
Yeah, can you explain to us what the difference of being in lane 8 actually means? I mean, obviously you just said he doesn't care about it, but as somebody who understands exactly how the dynamics of this works, is it just that you're always tempted to look around and see where everybody is?
Yeah, so I suppose the benefit, I would always have preferred lane 8 to lane 1. And Thomas kind of said he prefers the inside lane, but the benefit of lane 8 now is that he won't be able to see what anyone else is doing. He has to run his own race. He can't run off what the guy outside him is doing, or what the guy 2 lanes outside him. So he very much just kind of unblinkered, focus on his own race plan, which I think is probably not going to be a bad thing. I think it might be a blessing in disguise getting that. If you're in lane 1, you're watching someone like Warholm from Norway, who goes out like a train in that first 100. You're watching how far ahead he is when he's jumping that hurdle. Even if you don't purposely watch him, he's in your periphery. So I think for Thomas to be in lane 8 and just not get distracted, just focus on what exactly he has to execute in his race plan. And the benefit as well is that it's wider bends. He's a taller guy. He takes quite big strides. So to be in that tighter inside bend, it is a little bit more difficult for a taller person. So he said he doesn't really mind where he is, but I think lane 8 could benefit him.
Yeah, he says that he prefers, just reading a couple of quotes this morning, that he'd actually prefer lane 8 to lane 1. Like, obviously everybody wants it to kind of be in a positive mindset going into that. And as you say, it is around going around the bends is where this lane selection becomes key, or where this lane draw becomes key. And I guess for Tom as well, he's such a strong finisher that maybe when you're going around the bend and you get a bit more track before the hurdle, I wonder, does that finishing prowess almost feel like every bend is like a finishing element for him, that he can get those extra couple of strides on the track without having to leap? It might benefit him in that regard. I'm not sure what you think, Jessie.
Yeah, no, I think, well, now we were chatting about it yesterday, and said the one thing he doesn't like about lane 8 is the layout of the hurdle. He prefers to have more hurdles off the bend than on the bend. So just the way the hurdles would be laid out, the 5th hurdle in lane 8 is actually right on the bend, whereas if he was in lane 1, it would be still on the straight.
Right.
But to be honest, once you're in the race, you don't even really notice that. So I think for him, just being able to run his own race, because there will be a lot of distraction from those middle lanes with the guys. Him going in as the second slowest time on the board, I think hopefully the pressure might be reduced a little bit. But you know what? He is always like this. That final, I think you could have placed him in any lane. He's going to run his best race anyway, and I think that's the way he's going to attack it.
Jessie, what's your own situation at the moment? I read an interview that you did back at the start of the year where you were talking about maybe Tokyo might still be an option for you, but that you'd kind of know by the summer just exactly where your situation was. We're kind of at near the end of the summer now. What is your own personal situation?
I took a very conscious decision before Christmas to take a full step back from training altogether. So I've done enough to keep fit, bits and pieces, but I haven't gone near the track, I'd say, since maybe November. The UL track has been relayed, so it'll actually be there as of the end of this month. But I kind of made the decision, if I take a step back and I evaluate, do I miss training? Do I miss competing? Do I want to go back? Or am I happy that I've made the decision that, you know, my better days are behind me? And I kind of thought, with the new UL track starting, going to be there in September, I'm going to go back in September and train with the group again and just see if there's anything left in my legs. I'm constantly reading about all these athletes. I was only reading it out last night. The German who won the decathlon last night, he came back after 5 years of injury, from between 2012 or 2013 to this year. And I was kind of thinking, you know what, it can be done. Okay, my best days may be behind me, but I don't want to look back and think, could I have had another season in me? Could I have gone to another championship? Could I wear another Irish vest? So I'm going to go back in September and give it a go. But I'm happy with the decision I made not to compete this year, because it was a choice I made rather than being forced out through injury, which every other year has happened.
To what extent does September this year feel like the start of the Tokyo campaign? I'm sure it's the same for every athlete.
For me, not at all.
Okay.
Tokyo is a distant thing on the horizon. I may not even run anywhere near my best times, never mind a qualifying time for Tokyo. I'm just going back to run because I actually just missed the training, and I missed training for a goal. If Tokyo happens, it'll be a huge bonus, obviously, because I didn't get to run the individual in London. But it's very much see where I'm at. I have no plans of qualifying for anything. I'm just going to do the training and see how it goes. I may do 3 months of training and realise I'm very...
Or maybe you'll love it again, and that's the benefit of a break.
Yeah, that's what I'm hoping.
You're doing a PhD in psychology as well, is that right?
I am, yeah.
That must be a bit tricky when you're like, you know, thinking, oh, am I doing all this right on myself? Because, like, obviously, you know, it's hard not to apply the stuff that you're reading about and think, how does this actually affect my own career here? You know, physician, heal thyself, not always the easiest thing to do.
It isn't, and I've actually been working for the last year at the Institute of Sport as a trainee sports psychologist. So I look back, I never worked as a psychologist at all, any stage in my career, and I'm looking back now thinking there's so many times I would have benefited. And I always said, no, I don't ever want to see one because I'm studying it and I know what they're going to tell me. Now I see it really would benefit. And a different voice. But I'm really learning to apply what I say now, practice what I preach, what I'm saying to these athletes. I'm going to be attempting to go back to training in a very different mindset. That mindset of I'm going here because I've chosen to, the goal is very personal to me. It's not chasing time, it's not chasing qualification. So I think taking that break away and applying what I've been actually practicing has really kind of put me in a much better mindset than maybe it was even this time last year.
Which athletes have you been working with in the Institute of Sport?
So I'm working with the swim team, who are actually obviously competing in Glasgow at the moment. So it's a shame that these two clash. I've been working with them. I've been working with the development sailing squad as well, and I've been doing a bit of private work outside as well. But it's been great. It's been a great experience to be working with high performance teams like that.
Right, okay, because it's very interesting, like mentioning the swim team there, even just looking at Mona McSharry's post-swim interview after the 50 metres yesterday, there was so many different nuggets. I'm not sure if you saw it yourself, so many different nuggets that I presume a psychologist can tap into. And like one of the first things she said that she wants to focus more on herself next year. She perhaps focused a little bit too much on the 100 metres breaststroke this year. It was a very clear kind of pointing out of some, not errors in her season this year, but things that she would like to tweak going into next season.
Yeah, and that's really great to see. Like all the swim team, they've obviously got a whole new coaching setup and a whole very, very high performance setup that they've got. So they've welcomed me with open arms and really encouraged the swimmers to come to chat to me. And I think some of them are really starting seeing the benefit. To hear Mona saying things, because obviously Mona's based in Sligo and not in Dublin, so I don't really see her. But it's great to see that these are the kind of things they're saying. For such a young girl to be so clear in what she wants and what she recognises she needs is great. She's quite mature for her age, I suppose. And I think a lot of swimmers are being exposed to that environment from such a young age.
Yeah, she also said she wanted to jump straight back into it for next year. And we did a piece out with Art Lanigan O'Keefe out in the Institute of Sport last week, actually, and he was saying that sometimes you get that end of season buzz because quite often it's the big event at the end of the season, whereas you have to have a little bit of control, or somebody has to control you a little bit and say, listen, take your time off. You're only going to get injured if you go straight into it like you're mid-season at the start of your season. How big a problem is that for athletes psychologically?
Yeah, I think you do. You come home if competed well at your major championships, which is usually your end of season. I mean, Thomas did it, I think, after Rio, and it just didn't work. You're on that high at the time, and you're like, oh, I'm already going to look at what races I can do at home. I'm going to continue this good form. But, you often tend to go out and celebrate and enjoy the experience. There'll be an after party here at the championships for the athletes. To come back from that adrenaline buzz and kind of come home and just run some races that aren't really for anything is very, very difficult. So I would say if the plan was to finish at the championship, stick to that. And I think some people just kind of get a bit carried away and look for races maybe just to continue that form. You rarely hear people running as fast after the championships as they did at the championships.
Just wanted to ask you a quick question. Mark English is going this morning in the 800 metres. He's definitely somebody who, over the last couple of years, we had very high hopes for, and injuries have kind of prevented him from reaching the heights that we think he's capable of. What's his form like at the moment? Should we have high expectations today from him?
You know what? Mark is such an enigma at the best of times, and he hasn't a lot of running under his belts this year at all. His nationals, he won the nationals in a 150 something. Before that, he had one race, a 150 something from America. He ran in Morton Games, didn't finish the race with, I think, a calf strain or something. So it's going to be tough unless he really, because there's a lot of very fast guys at 100 today. Obviously, him being in the heat, it would give him better chance. I'm not sure. I don't think there's a buy though for the 800s like there is in the sprints. So he is going to have to pull out a much faster time than he's been running. Like I said, you just don't know what Mark is doing. He could come out and run a 146 and surprise us all. I think it might be tougher for him today than it has been at previous championships. I just don't feel like he's had the preparation he probably needs for major championships.
Yeah, the other story, of course, today is Leon Reid. He's running in the evening session as well, alongside Tom Barr. He's also in lane 8 in his 200 metre final this evening. Lane 8, hopefully, is good luck for the Irish later on. Reid seems to be loving it. He said that the green singlet feels like a super suit. He's put up good times. Seems like this 84-year wait for an Irish sprinter on the podium could have one hell of a chance of ending.
Yeah, I really do believe that there's going to be a medal come to Ireland tonight from one of the events. Yeah, Leon is someone who's divided opinion a lot, and I've been very aware of the kind of chat around him on Twitter. Some of it's very, very negative, some more positive. I would know Leon from when I trained in Bath for 2 years. I was doing my masters, and he was a cocky little fella when he was an 18-year-old, and he hasn't really grown out of it. I think he hasn't enamored himself to the Irish public because we're not used to that. We're not used to that. Someone coming out and saying, yeah, I want to win, that the modesty that he doesn't have compared to Irish people. And I'm not saying it's a bad thing. I think, why not? If you're good enough, why not kind of be confident? But I think people are going, I don't really know how to feel about someone saying they want to go out and win. Usually we don't have that. So I think people are very mixed towards him. And I think that's just his character. That's just the way he is. I was reading out his interview last night. He's had a very, very tough upbringing. I think, fair play to him to be getting to the stage of that. He's super talented. And I think at the end of the day, he's on our Irish team. He's wanted to run for Ireland. Probably going to bring in medals that we weren't ever going to have twice. So we should be welcoming regardless of how he got on the team.
Jessie, great stuff. Enjoy tonight and best of luck. Thanks a million.
Thank you very much.
I hope the nerves don't get too much for everybody. Jessie Barr there, really interesting stuff. Irish athletics seems in a really good place at the moment.
Yeah, it's great. It's fantastic from the grassroots underage level, obviously all the success we've seen over the past couple of months, to like Leon Reid kind of giving a little bit of hope in Irish sprinting. On a male perspective, obviously it's been all young women who've kind of given us hope over the past couple of months, and then Leon Reid comes back, gets his allegiance rubber stamped last Friday, I think it was, just in time for Berlin. Representing us. I kind of like that swagger that he has.
Yeah, bring it on.
If you're a sprinter, you have to have that bit of swagger.
Yeah, come on. And Irish swagger, come on.
Tom Barr's got a swagger as well. It's a more modest type of swagger, but he goes with it. And that's why we're sitting here in hope this morning that Barr can pull out a medal-winning performance later on, despite the fact that his form this season suggests that he should not be in the conversation whatsoever.
No
but
pressure.
He's Tom Barr, so he could be.
No pressure from Big Sister going, I think we're going to get a medal tonight, one of these two things.
Yeah.
All right, okay.
We're either going to end the drought of 84 years for an Irish sprinting medal, or my brother's going to win.
It's not bad.
Yeah, it's a win-win-win.
I mean, there's a bit of swagger attached to that as well. So
absolutely, maybe it's going to be 2 medals.
I do want to tell you about something that we have coming up. It is a very special, exclusive All-Ireland football final preview show coming up on Thursday, the 30th of August. We're going to be live in Croke Park with Aidan O'Shea, Kieran McGeeney, Stennan Connell, Cora Staunton and more stellar names who we'll be announcing over the next couple of weeks. Just go to offtheball.com/events now and you'll be able to get your tickets before they're all gone. And all our GAA, obviously in association with Boyle Sports. Dublin are 6 point. Galway +6 is 6-5 with Boyle Sports for the game of the weekend. I think this game could be like a 13-11 or a 15-11 or an 18-13. I definitely think that like Galway +6 is a reasonable shout.
Well, the only reason that would happen, you would have to give huge credit to Kevin Walsh and Paddy Talley, because Tyrone went into that Dublin game last year in far better form than Galway are going into this game.
I think you can just write off the Monaghan game. I legitimately think you can just write off that Monaghan game.
You can't write off what Tyrone were doing all season before that Dublin game last year. They were incredible last year.
You can, because they played nobody. Like
I don't know. I think
they came through an Ulster Championship that was like the end of the Rory Gallagher era in Donegal.
Yeah, still a lot of the same players they have this year. Like, I mean, they beat Donegal comprehensively in Ulster last year. They destroyed our man Croke Park.
They also had no plan B. So I think that Tyrone performance was abysmal last year.
And I don't know if Galway have a plan B.
I think that was also Dublin's best performance of the championship. So what you're saying is you can see Dublin perform at that same level in this year's All-Ireland semi-final as they did it last year. And in that case, then I can see 6 points. Absolutely.
Yeah.
But
I'm not sure if they can, though. Like, it's the counterpoint to that.
I also think that if they get a goal up, if they get 4 points up, they're going to start tippy-tapping.
That's the difference. That's the difference with Dublin this year, for sure.
So I think that's...
it's decent. I'm having the over. I think Dublin are going to win by 7 or 8 points on Saturday night.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
And it's going to put in their signature performance of the year.
Probably. Like, I don't think you necessarily... Like, I think, as you say, if they get a goal in the first 20 minutes or so, I think they can put up a 7-point win without looking too spectacular. Like, there is this last 15-minute kick, as I mentioned anyway. Mossy thinks that if it's going down the line, Dublin are going to win. I'd be interested to see how Galway do if they just say, right, okay, we're 2 points down, 15 minutes to go, let's go all guns blazing and see how they go, because I think counter-attacking wise they can be good, but we all know how Dublin do against counter-attacking teams post-2014.
Big show on the Roisin Dove tonight on the radio as well. 9801 Nostalgia, puke. Ray Silk and Pat Comer are going to be on stage. Michael Meehan is going to be there for that as well. Ricey McMenamin is part of the evening's proceedings as well, and I think David Brady is a co-host. It's 2 Mayo men. Imagine the sickness sticking in their craw. Nathan and David Brady presenting an All-Ireland football semi-final preview show, and no involvement. The only involvement from the 2 Mayo lads.
Imagine if Galway won the All-Ireland. Imagine what Mayo people would feel.
Again!
Like, yeah, exactly. It would be very similar to 2001 from a Mayo perspective, I'd imagine.
98. Yeah.
98, sorry.
Yeah, yeah.
Of course.
Year after year after year after year of heartbreak, and then Galway sneaking out of nowhere. It's like classic.
It would be devastating, I think, is the word from their perspective.
Yeah. Absolutely. Tomorrow morning on Off the Ball AM, Chris Kamara and Dave McIntyre are going to be in studio. Did you do the Chris Kamara interview?
No, Adrian Barry did it, and apparently it's sensational, he tells me. Adrian said, I was watching Raymond Fitzmaurice interview earlier on.
Did the baryometer make a...
but my Chris Kamara interview is not shit. It's actually beautiful.
Right. Well.
He said he called his interview beautiful.
Okay, good man. To play us out today with a cut from our new record, here's Paddy Considine on with Andy Lee yesterday, talking about why he wanted to make a different kind of boxing film. If you haven't seen this, you should go straight over to youtube.com/Off the Ball, which I know you all subscribe to. If you don't, just click subscribe and we'll forgive you. And luxuriate in 20 minutes of brilliant, beautiful boxing chat. Here's 2 for you. Good luck.
It's so interesting because that's something that I consciously wanted to do. I got tired of, and I don't know if it's where I am in the films I've made in the past, but I got tired of that idea of, fighters battling with demons and the ring being the place where that's kind of atoned for. And, it's done. They did it in Raging Bull. It was beautifully done back then. I didn't want to make a film about a guy who was dealing with his masculinity. It wasn't about that for me, and I think it's what Andy said earlier. Somebody criticised me. They said Paddy Considine's not convincing as a boxer, and I'm like, that's because you don't know boxers. And they weren't from a boxing world; they were from a journalist world. And I'm going, Matty Burton's, I know. Andy, you somebody who still does carry yourself with class. When you were doing press conferences and head-to-head, you carried yourself with class. So yourself, Darren Barker, those kind of fighters that don't get into the trash talking. You know, there's a silent confidence about them, and that's what I wanted Matty to do. If I'd have had a character in Andre Brighton and Matty Burton and they're at a press conference just at each other's throats, I've seen it before a million times. I just wanted to show a different side of the game. But it's not a rags to riches story. It's a guy who's he's the champion. He's got a decent house. He's looked after things. He doesn't really need to fight, but he does. Because in himself he's saying, I want that sense of fulfillment within myself. I want to feel legitimate. And so he goes in and has this final fight. But ultimately, the film really is about those things that we choose to pursue, those baubles, those awards, those things that are ultimately are kind of, they're not the fulfilling things in our lives, they're meaningless. And the film is about the death of oneself and the birth of another, if I may. That's what the film's about. It's about the death of the ego.
OTB AM.
Thanks to Screwfix.ie, championing the trade with a choice of over 20,000 quality trade products.